How's it going? Welcome back to a very special video today, and I'm very excited to be giving you this video because I want to discuss Ubisoft. And I know a lot of YouTubers have discussed their issues with Ubisoft, but with the recent release of the amazing new Assassin's Creed, which has got everyone so excited for, I think it's the perfect time to address the elephant in the room, and that is what has happened to Ubisoft. Everybody hates Ubisoft.
Yasuke was never a samurai. He served under Nobunaga, but was never given title or rank in his lifetime. I can't deny. Oh, all right. Anyways, oh, I'm not showing that one. Okay, cool. Anyways, oh god, I hate this stuff.
You're finished, Black Doom.
You cannot defeat me, Shadow. You're cringe.
No, it can't be.
Why does everybody hate Ubisoft, you might ask? Well, that's what we're going to discuss in this video, and I'm not going to regurgitate the same points that other people have, talked about for many years now. We all know that the Ubisoft game design is outdated. We all know the open world design is just regurgitated and boring. And we know that Ubisoft like money. But there's a deeper issue going on here, and that's what I'm going to address today. I've done extensive research looking deep into the real issues with Ubisoft. This is the documentation of the downfall of Ubisoft. Why Ubisoft sucks now, and why Ubisoft is a bad company in the eyes of many gamers.
The most disliked trailer in the series history.
This hate that he's getting does not make any sense.
Now, the sad thing is, Ubisoft didn't used to be like this, okay? Ubisoft actually used to make creative, original, and fun games before they became an algorithm, pretty much, producing the same game over and over again. They actually made original ideas. If you look back at something like Far Cry 2 compared to Far Cry 5 or Far Cry 6, you can see the attention of detail that has just completely been lost nowadays. Look at the care and attention to detail that we see in older games, and then compare the physics of games now to older games. We just don't get that type of innovation anymore. You have to look at indie games that are doing something different. Valheim is a perfect example. When you cut down a tree, it has physics. The game feels alive, even though it's not realistic graphically. That doesn't matter, okay? It's the trend of chasing these high fidelity games that is destroying the industry, and it goes a lot deeper. Now, a good analogy was older Ubisoft games. They had time to cook. Just let them cook, okay? And believe me, my wise ones, they were cooked, okay? They had plenty of love and attention to them. Look at the OG Assassin's Creed. Look at more original and creative games like Beyond Good and Evil, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Games that actually had innovation, creativity, and most importantly, passionate people behind them. Gamers, okay? Not people just trying to make a salary, okay? Joining a massive mega corporation.
Yourself could never bring down a being as based as me.
So I do hope you enjoyed this video, the downfall of Ubisoft, why Ubisoft is bad, and basically why everybody hates Ubisoft, why I hate Ubisoft. I'm sorry, Ubisoft. Of course, I want that YouTuber bread and maybe get partnered with Ubisoft, but this video is probably going to kill that chance. And yes, I'm sacrificing a lot, I guess, but I've got to stand by my integrity, and I'm glad more YouTubers are speaking about it, but as gamers, we need to draw attention to this type of practice, this type of media manipulation and corruption, because art is important, and video games are art. Make no mistake, okay? Art pushes the envelope, makes us think about new ideas, different perspectives. They can be that, but if they just become basically glorified mobile gaming, then we lose the art form of games, and that's the deeper issue that I'm going to talk about today, and the real reason why Ubisoft is bad. So I do hope you enjoy this one. If you are new, which is highly likely, do subscribe to the channel, become a wise one today. I would appreciate it a lot, as this video is quite out there, and the fact that Ubisoft has the audacity to say that gamers need to get used to not owning their own video games that we paid money to, which is absolutely insane when we pay them the money to own a product. But this is the digital world now, so of course they don't want you to feel comfortable with that. Then that's the point, I think, finally people have realized, okay, we're not dealing with a company that likes you. We're not dealing with someone who cares about the gamers, someone who cares about this art form. They are just in it for the money. And when they produced a massive amount of games and they are so influential, other big developers are looking to them as inspiration because they see that they make lots of money, because for some reason people still buy their games. It's a very important issue we tackle this, and as this video is not sponsored and recently I have decided to go full time, check out the channel trailer if you want more information, but please consider supporting the show. This is what I'm trying to do now, so I'm trying to put out 5 videos a week, so it's very, very important that you consider supporting me. It would mean more than you know, so please do drop a thanks, drop a donation on PayPal, or join the Patreon, check out my music, whatever it is, please support the show. I would appreciate it so much. Thank you.
It's okay. Try to stay cool.
Nowadays, Ubisoft games feel like fast food, okay? You know what you're gonna get, and it's going to be exactly the same carbon copy burger that you get from any other store because it's the same production. Now, I remember I got massive backlash for, taking the piss out of Far Cry 6 and calling it just another shallow Far Cry game. People have become so brainwashed over the years of just, this mindless slop. They don't remember what good quality gaming was. And it's not nostalgia, okay? This is empirical evidence when you just look at the massive games that were released back 10 years ago, okay? And how each game was doing something different, borrowing different ideas from different genres. They weren't all basically the same production with slight tweaks and different coats of paint and different themes. They were all individual different ideas.
The definition of insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
Let's take a look at something like Beyond Good and Evil, okay? This game did so many unique things, okay? It was a weird sci-fi adventure where you hop around from different planet to planet, kind of like Starfield, but actually good, and the loading screens were actually less. It was a game all about propaganda and challenging the people in charge of media, which is quite ironic now because Ubisoft have literally become the evil mega corporation. It did very different things within this one game, okay? It had platforming, it had combat, it had you kind of upgrading your little boat / spaceship, and then that could eventually, explore space, but also explore the world, the main kind of mini open world that you were in by exploring in the sea, kind of like Dredge or something like that. It was such a unique game, and it had so many interesting ideas, so many unique characters, and personality, okay? That thing, personality, has been completely lost nowadays.
Oh, in the mouth, it was lovely. Then onto the ice cream. And the chocolate sauce. Dig in. Never seen anything quite so horrible in all her life.
So I got all of my notes together to basically drill down exactly why Ubisoft is bad and why the downfall of Ubisoft has finally become apparent in recent times. So I'm going to go through all of these issues and talk about the big issue at the end of the video. So stick around so you hear the kind of secret behind Ubisoft and the Ubisoft downfall. So the first thing is, of course, Ubisoft look at where the money is. And in the gaming industry, for some bizarre reason, in Japan, for example, where I live, a lot of them spend a lot of time on their phones, going from work, coming back, so they don't really have time to sit down and play big releases, and I think that's true in a lot of countries, okay? So mobile gaming is very, very popular. Mobile gaming is also where the money is at, okay? Most of the money made by the gaming industry is actually produced by mobile games, and you have to understand that this is a massive, massive industry, bigger than TV, bigger than movies, and it's a real art form, and it's a real treat when we get games that actually say something, like Baldur's Gate 3, like Fallout New Vegas, like The Outer Wilds, okay, like Bioshock. But then we get games like this, and they are replicating, Ubisoft is replicating mobile gaming. Over the last 8 years or so, Ubisoft has just ramped up the microtransactions and the in-game purchases, so you don't even buy the full game on release anymore, and they deliberately make their games longer and extend them so people feel that they actually have to give them money just to complete the game that they actually paid for. So it's an artificial experience, okay? It's not a game trying to, you know, give you an original story, give you interesting writing, give you a fun experience. It's a product made to waste your time so that you feel that to get the full experience you actually have to give them more money. And it's the same with all of their multiplayer games compared to their older games. So they look at mobile gaming to see how they can put mobile gaming into their main AAA releases. And they've done that very successfully because that's where they make most of the money nowadays. It follows a lot of mobile game design philosophies, okay, in which you have to wait in real time, you know, for something to be produced in-game, for example. Rinse and repeat content that is easily, you know, mass-produced and replicated, so then they can boast that they have lots of things to do in the game, but actually there's nothing really to do. A massive contrast is Far Cry 2 compared to the new Far Cry games, okay? Or even Far Cry 3, which was a great game. Artificially blowing that game up nowadays, like Far Cry 6, Far Cry 5, where it's all the same activities, it's all the same, you know, different quests, fetch quests, and generic content compared to the handcrafted, you know, more immersive experience of Far Cry 2. We can also see that with the Assassin's Creed games, okay? So when the first Assassin's Creed game came out, and Assassin's Creed 2, it was, you know, playing with a new genre. It was doing something different within the open world gaming landscape, okay? And yes, it did have its, you know, kind of bloat in it, but they were experimenting back then, trying to think how can they make this open world, you know, more interesting to explore, and I don't think it really worked, but the main story, the art style, the writing, and the passion was there in Assassin's Creed 2. It took what the original game did and it innovated, but that can't be said anymore with the new Assassin's Creed games, okay? They have made them, again, these massive, bloated experiences where you have to spend like 200 hours or something just to pass the main campaign. So it's not just in-game money and not being able to have the full DLC on release. For example, the new Star Wars game, that doesn't even include the DLC in the base game. You have to pre-order and spend more money to actually get the full product because they actually are trying to release DLC even before the original release comes out, which it makes no sense. The Far Cry games just got worse and worse with time, which is very sad because they were also very interesting and innovative to begin with. Far Cry 3 had great story, great pacing, and interesting new ideas being thrown all over the place, and then it was just the same game over and over again. So it's not just with money, it's also with their game philosophy and their game objectives and design approach, okay? And you have to remember that Ubisoft is a massive, massive mega corporation now, okay? So they train their developers on the same principles and they don't want creativity. They don't want people to think outside the box. That's why it's exactly the same thing. Because they are creating games as an algorithm instead of a creative process, instead of trying to experiment with different genres, they are only looking at the data to see what has worked in the past and going with that. It's the same as if a YouTuber produced the same content over and over again, not taking any risks. For example, like this video, I am not sticking to the usual thing, but it's something I wanted to talk about. The next thing I want to talk about is now the lack of immersion in Ubisoft games, okay? So remember with Assassin's Creed 1, they actually took out the crossbow because of historical accuracy. Now, when you look at the new Assassin's Creed game, it makes you wonder what they're even doing. Because yes, Assassin's Creed, the games have always been about historical fiction, but there's been, you know, some relevance to the real world. And you can say the same thing about their multiplayer games. Because they know there's money to be made in microtransactions, they don't care about creating a cohesive, interesting world. They're not creating game worlds to actually feel like lived-in fiction. You know, that's where art comes from. That's where stories can take place. They are creating just a foundation for people to spend their money. And, you know, that's very transparent in their downgrades.
No, it can't be.
It's simply become gamified. It's not trying to give you an original experience anymore. It's all about how can they gamify this. Like with Rainbow Six Siege, for example, now you can basically have magical powers. And Rockstar do this to a degree as well with their multiplayer games, which I've talked about before. Next, let's talk about UI design, okay? So, Ubisoft are known for cluttering their open world games with bad UI design. You know, basically taking all of the thinking out of the equation for the modern gamer, okay? To make people think that being a gamer, you don't actually have to use your brain. And a lot of people hate it for good reason, okay? Being told exactly what to do and where to go takes all of the freedom out of an open world game, which is the genre that they innovated in originally. And also they experimented with lots of different games like Splinter Cell, for example, Beyond Good and Evil, like I said, Prince of Persia, the original Prince of Persia games, they were incredible, the, you know, 3D games back on the PS2, like Sands of Time, and sadly that's the same thing with all of their stories. The characters are very forgettable, they have to pander to the biggest audience possible, so it can never say anything deep or interesting anymore. The stories are all vanilla, the main characters are all very tame and one note. It also usually pushes some kind of ideology just so they can get extra brownie ESG points. It lacks all passion and creativity now, and that's simply because they only care about monopolizing and creating as much profit as possible. It's a real shame when you compare the storyline of Assassin's Creed 2, for example, and the personality and the charm of Ezio compared to any of the recent generic characters in Assassin's Creed. I don't even remember any of their names past Black Flag, because that's when I stopped innovating completely. And like I said, the main issue is because this isn't created by gamers anymore. This isn't created by people who are passionate about the art form, okay? People who are allowed to experiment like they are allowed to do in smaller independent studios. Everyone is defined into their job category, okay? And they don't have any like movement in that job category. That's the only explanation I can have, and because of the higher-ups and the shareholders pushing the people to make the same product. And people have forgotten that, okay? It's kind of like YouTube. If you just chase it for money, like Mr. Beast, for example, you take the fun out of the creativity. And people have forgotten that creating games, yes, it's, you know, media and it's a production, but like anything, like a book, a TV show, a movie, it actually has to have that original creativity core to it, the people passionate behind it. And sadly, I think Ubisoft has completely stripped that from all of their games, and the people working there have that mentality because it's been trained into them. So we can't have any stories that tackle big topics, you know, different perspectives or philosophies, like something like Fallout New Vegas would, with different ideologies and giving actual freedom to the player, trusting that the player has a brain for themselves, or just giving a good, proper story like something like Naughty Dog would produce. They have completely stripped all of that away in favor of, like I said, mobile game objectives, cluttered UI design, and the complete lack of immersion in the game world means that you don't have that much invested in the game, so it doesn't matter if you see something that is completely just doesn't make any sense within the game world itself, because you've become so detached by that point. It's just mindless popcorn entertainment, and that's what Ubisoft games have become. The next thing I want to talk about is the ego of this corporation now, okay? They don't produce AAA games, no, they don't ever touch disgusting AA games either, or God forbid, create independent studios within Ubisoft, or, you know, they pretend they're independent games, but they're not. They make quadruple A games. They make A games, okay? They are masters of the craft. They never acknowledge community feedback. They never acknowledge that the gamer, the consumer, the people who, you know, consume this art form, who are passionate about this art form, the content creators or anything like that, they never admit that maybe they might be wrong and maybe it's time to make a change. They never look at games that innovate like Elden Ring or Zelda Breath of the Wild, who do things within that same genre of open world games that innovate and create new different gameplay mechanics, bring back, you know, involved world building and physics and stuff like that within the games, or good quality writing like something like, or good quality writing. They don't look at any of that because they are so set in their ways that they've completely lost touch with what made their games good to begin with. And we can see this with their downgrades, okay? I've shown a few examples thanks to the source Crobat, okay? But it's pretty transparent that they just don't care at this point. You know, marketing a game, lying about their game pretty much has just become standard practice for big gaming companies nowadays, and Ubisoft love to do that. So now let's talk about pricing, because games have become so massive, they take so long to produce, and they have become completely inflated, and the prices reflect that, and Ubisoft want to squeeze as much money as possible. Like I said, they're trying to charge for a CGI trailer, this new Assassin's Creed game, for example, massive pre-orders, the deluxe edition, which costs, you know, over $100 for something that doesn't even tangibly exist for the consumers yet. It's just a CGI trailer. They're trying to charge for DLC that hasn't actually been released because the actual game hasn't been released yet with the new Star Wars game. They are completely obsessed with money. When they literally erase your library because they just stopped supporting it now, when you've paid for the game, that's when gamers have finally realized they are just completely lost, okay? Now, I want to address nostalgia, okay? Because, of course, you could say that plays a part in criticizing Ubisoft, but it's not, okay? When you look back at their older games, like the original Prince of Persia games, the Splinter Cell games, they did something different. They had something to say. They had artistry behind it, okay? That has been completely stripped away now from all Ubisoft games. The original Prince of Persia games dealt with so many different ideas, time travel mechanics within a game that actually played a massive role within platforming and making the platforming challenging because you could get away with it thanks to the time mechanic. A deep, detailed combat system where you have to memorize and master different combos, which have completely been lost now. Now it's all about doing the same generic attacks with abilities instead of actually remembering combos. That's pretty much lost. A lot of different ideas, okay? When they hit gold with the open world game approach with Assassin's Creed, with Far Cry, they didn't think, how can we build upon this? They didn't think, you know, how can we add new different items in the game to make traversal more interesting or add more to the world, make interesting dynamic quests, like something like Red Dead Redemption 2 did. They just doubled down because they saw money, because they saw that greed will win no matter what, okay? That's what's wrong with Ubisoft. When massive shareholders have so much power, gaming ceases to be an art form and it becomes just a cutthroat business. And this is why modern day gaming is in trouble, and it's not all bad because we do get AA games now and independent studios and some still good quality game developers like From Software, but this is why gaming is in hot water, and if we don't challenge it, then we lose a very powerful art form, which is only going to get more and more bigger as time gets on, as simulation, as technology and AI progresses. I do hope you enjoyed this documentation of the downfall of Ubisoft and why Ubisoft is bad, why everybody hates Ubisoft, and looking at the real issue, which is for creativity. And without creativity, without innovation, we just will completely lose touch with this art form, and new ideas, new perspectives won't get challenged anymore. It will all just become a regurgitated echo chamber of the same rinse and repeat ideas, and that isn't what gaming should be about, and Ubisoft has to change, but I don't think they will. But I'm glad people have finally woken up to that fact, and finally we might get that power back now that more independent developers are starting and creating their own games. I'm actually working with an independent developer at the moment on a soundtrack, so there is hope, but that is the current state of Ubisoft. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please do drop a like, that will help the video. Leave a comment, that will also help. And please consider dropping a donation so I can keep doing this and I don't have to resort to basically being homeless. That would be great. And I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day. Peace out.